So this is the first um, Q&A session, kind of open discussion about fear and our businesses. And one of the reasons I actually wanted to start out about talking about fear is just because it is the thing that will keep us from getting the businesses and creating the difference we want to be creating in our lives. And as heart-centered entrepreneurs, I think we're motivated by two things. One, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we're motivated by making a living, but we're also financial living. We're also motivated by making a difference in our living, so that our lives make a difference to the people that we're serving.
I would add one to that.
Sure.
Which is that not only wanting to make a difference, but to also be working in a different environment, right? Whether it's our own company or working for somebody else.
Right. Doing something that matters to us personally.
Right. And that suits our lifestyle and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and I kind of wrote about it in the intro email, but one of the things that my first discoveries and kind of a rude awakening in starting a business was realizing that my biggest challenge, honestly, was dealing with my fear, my mindset, the challenges that we have, and overcoming whatever obstacles that we may have. And I personally wasn't expecting that. I thought once I had a great idea, then it was just, all smooth sailing from there on. What have your guys' been experiences like that? Has it all been smooth sailing for you, or?
Lots of fears. Lots of fears. Yeah, definitely. One thing is to be vulnerable and put out what you create and show yourself to the world. Another thing is asking for money is a huge fear of mine. And so, yeah, there's lots going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. It's been sort of one obstacle or internal barrier after another, of like feeling like a fraud, of not wanting to ask for money, of being afraid that I would disappoint people, let people down, or being afraid people would get mad at me. It's like,
right.
But the biggest one, I mean, for me, I guess at this point, it feels like the really going out and asking for money and making money with what I know and what I do is sort of not the last barrier, but it's the biggest one that I'm facing now. I feel like I've worked out a lot of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to somebody recently and saying, I feel like I could teach anything that I know, as long as I wasn't charging for it. I could just like get up in front of a crowd, and say whatever. But as soon as I'm charging money, I feel like there's some different level that's required of me or something, and I always feel like I'm falling short of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I do ask for money, but I don't do it really well, and I don't ask for very much.
Right. And I know you've got a program that's starting
on Thursday.
On what day?
Thursday.
On Thursday. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got something coming up quickly. And I know for me, even though this course is I'm not charging anything for this challenge this week, it was totally intimidating, putting it together is oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Do I have anything of value to say? And et cetera, et cetera. And it's just, it's confronting, but it's taking the stance that what we do have is of value and benefit to others. Paula, how about you? How about you in this regard? What's your biggest fear?
There's definitely fear that I'm not providing enough value, or that, I don't know, nobody sees the world the way I do, and that nobody will understand what I'm saying. And I'm just starting out in my business, so I'm still a lot going back and forth over how I want to present my stuff. Do I just want to write? Do I work one-on-one with people? Do I want to create online courses? So there's still a lot of fear around am I doing the right thing? And yeah, does it even make sense what I'm doing here? So yeah.
Right. So what does it look like for one thing? Yeah. Like what you're saying, you know, are you writing? Are you doing courses? Are you doing seminars? Are you doing, you know, those are all things that have come through my mind too, is, you know, what exactly am I doing? And it's challenging. So, and I want to tie this into, now that I've changed my group name to, let's see, there we go. Trying to find, okay. Oh, I'm realizing I'm not sharing it with you guys. Let's see. So one of the things that I've changed with my group is adding wealth onto it, which I don't know about for you, Miche, but for me, it was kind of confronting. You know, it's like, you know, who am I to say that I'm wealthy, especially financially wealthy? And what I associate wealth with is also worth and value, and, you know, the things we've been talking about. And so, how do we create a wealthy business and a wealthy life for ourselves when we have these fears that get in our way? And what does that look like? And the thing that I came from with my accounting background is that, dang it, there we are. Okay. So, can you guys see that?
Not yet.
What is going on? Okay. Can you see it now?
It says it. Oh, yep, got it.
Okay. So essentially, when we're creating a business, whether we're talking about wealth as being as far as the value that we're creating or the lifestyle that we're creating or whatever, is that my accounting background actually applies, which was really kind of a surprise for me, honestly, in this realm, is that what we're doing is wealth is our assets minus our liabilities. So assets are like the things that we have that are of value. And those can be anything from, you know, the information that we're sharing, our services. It could be, you know, the product we have on the shelf, whether that be, you know, the jewelry that you have, Miche, or, you know, our illustrations or our music or whatever, but that we're creating this value. And fear gets in the way in in many different ways, but one of the ways that fear gets in the way of creating assets is, one, there's a lot of confusion as to what exactly that we're creating. You know, what is the format that that our business and our value is looking like? And then on the liability side of things, you know, is what I provide of enough value? What do I have to overcome in order to create that? And that can be things like, you know, obligations to other people through debt or through needing to work for a living, or for, you know, these different things that take us away from creating the value that we want to have in our businesses. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that brings me to the next point, which was, in creating that value, one of the things that I started out doing, dang it. Sorry about this. There we go. Okay. So, okay. So one of the things that I came across when I was just starting out in business was this idea of, are you guys familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in that, there's the idea of self-actualization, and it's all about getting through the lower rungs in order to get to the higher rung. And in doing that, what we've created is that we have something that we're passionate about and something that we want to create. Okay. Looks like we lost Paula.
Oh, yeah.
I am like totally flipping out on this.
You breathing, Steve. You're good.
Anyway, so the thing is that when we create value, when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, did you hear that piece, Paula? Can you hear me?
Didn't look like it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that self-actualization piece is where we're really finding internal value, but it's also how we can create value for the people in our lives and our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently reading a book by Jim Collins, which is Great by Choice. And Jim Collins is a guy who is a researcher who has looked at the best companies that have been created over the last, several decades.
And what did you say the title was?
It's called Great by Choice.
Great by Choice. Okay.
Yeah. And he's written a number of books. This is like one of his latter ones. So he's also written, what is the first one? Good to Great. So it's talking about how companies go from, just being good to being great. And then the other one that he wrote was Great by Choice. And the third one is, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, but it's all his whole work is all about figuring out how do you create businesses and value that are just really make a huge difference in people's lives. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I came across recently is just that he uses Maslow's hierarchy of needs in order to show that those companies that are really consistent in narrowing in on what it is that they provide real value with. And so going back to the kind of the model that I showed earlier about assets is that they focus on the things that they're really good at, and that they're like relentless and really narrowed down on that. And they get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve that value. And by doing so, they're able to overcome the challenges that they face. And one of the examples that he talks about in this book that I'm reading right now, Good to Great, is not Good to Great, sorry, that's another book. Great by Choice is that he talks about the journey to the South Pole that Amundsen and Scott did back in the early 20th century. And I don't know if you guys know about that, but Amundsen was able to make it to his destination to the South Pole and back, and just had things went really well for him. And Scott, who left almost exactly the same time to go down to the South Pole, ended up having a disastrous, literally, experience, and he lost all of his party, ended up dying, and they lost all their goods, and they lost their dogs and so forth. Not their dogs. They lost the transportation that they had, and the difference that these two people exhibited was that Scott Amundsen focused on not only on the things that they would need if things went absolutely well, but also focused on the things he was prepared for things in case things went really, really badly. And so he made sure that he had twice as much material or supplies as what he would have needed if everything had gone perfectly. Scott, on the other hand, totally operated off the chance that, of things being best case scenario. And the reason that I bring this up is that in focusing on what our strengths are and making, what do you call it? Acknowledgments for the things that aren't as great, then they are prepared for both situations, and consequently we're really successful. And so going back to this idea of the success formula that Jim Collins talks about, and actually it's in other places as well, is that when we focus on what our passion is, what it is that we want to create, then, and also we look at the things that we have mastery about, and I'm not sharing my screen again, am I? Okay. So when we take into consideration what our passion is, what our mastery is, and what the situation in the market is that we can continue to hone and develop our assets, and we can overcome the liabilities that we have. So how do we go about navigating towards where we're really masterful? And the way that we do that is by pursuing the things that where we find resonance between who we are and what our what our business mission is. So what are your guys' thoughts on what I've shared so far?
I guess I'm wondering for myself, what would it look like to be that explorer who's, sort of not preparing or being, considering that the worst might happen, right? And so what's my worst, or how would I deal with it? I don't really have a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's part of how fear has sort of the hold and the strength to kind of keep me back, because if I have no plan to deal with the scary thing that I think might happen, then I'm kind of screwed, when it comes.
Right. So are you pretty confident about the things that you have mastery over? So like, I know you do a lot of energy work and that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident, in myself. And I think this again is where once I start charging money, what happens, I think, is I feel like I have to be on somebody else's scale or something, and so what I know and how I know it and how I teach it suddenly I don't feel confident. I mean, I don't feel confident about me sort of in a more mainstream, even if it's not really mainstream, but that's where one of the places I lose confidence. But sort of within my own domain, I feel pretty confident.
Good. How about you, Paula? Like, where do you feel mastery in what you're doing currently?
The connection isn't great, so I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. So what I've been taking away so far is that I think I'm too much prepared of the bad things that could happen. Like, I don't focus as much on the good things that could happen, and therefore I kind of stay stuck in just doing this as a hobby and having my job on the side and not worrying about money and charging. Kind of having too much of the safety net and not taking enough risk at all, ever.
Really interesting, huh? So so what you're saying is you're accounting for all the, I don't know, the things that could go wrong, rather than focusing on what could go right as well. And there's kind of like both sides to that, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I mean, not so much focusing on what. Yeah, maybe not even so much about everything that could go wrong, but like not even taking into consideration that it could go right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So that's a really good point. So one of the things that, so how do we navigate from where we are on the one side that that we have the skills and the strengths and the talents that we have, and we know that we want to get to this kind of the spot, this destination in our businesses, but we also know that there are these challenges that set in our way. One question is one, how clear are you, each of you, in what it is that you want to create? Like, are you really familiar, and do you have a really clear picture of what that business looks like in a year, 5 years, or 10 years? Or is it kind of just a sense, a direction that you're headed?
More direction, I think.
And I'm hearing the similar thing from you, Paula. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm definitely still working on the picture, on the goals. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that can contribute to some of the fears that we experience in our businesses. When we're not really clear on where it is that we're headed. Like if we're thinking about, I don't know, if you're thinking about driving somewhere, if it's somewhere that you've been 1,000 times before, going to the grocery store, or, going to work, or wherever it may be, then it's really not that big of a deal to drive there. On the other hand, if it's a place that we've never been to before, like let's say, so I had a conversation this morning with someone who just got back from going to Iceland, and having that experience of going to this other place that's so different from where we're at right now, can be really challenging, because we don't know what it's like. We don't really know all the details. We've never been there before, and so forth. And so one of the challenges that we have in overcoming the fears that we're encountering is like being really clear on what it is that we're trying to get to, right? So if we're like really clear on where it is that we're headed, so like let's say this, so the person that I'm talking about, her name is Melissa, in going to Iceland, at first it's just kind of a nebulous idea of where it is we want to go. And then, as time elapses, she, goes to online and buys tickets from, I don't know, whatever, Iceland Airlines or whatever it may be. And, gets the ticket, starts putting the itinerary together, gets things lined up in order to get there, and things evolve with that, and it starts getting more and more of a clear picture. Then I think it eliminates a lot of the fears that we have in attaining and reaching that goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Except, sometimes when it's fear, it's not, it's irrational, right? So it on paper, it makes sense, and then when you come down to it, it's like, okay, you got the degree or the certification or the experience, or, you got the office space, you got all this stuff, and like, you're still like stuck.
Right. So even though you have the plane tickets, let's say, even though we have the degree, even though we have, whatever, there's still a matter of going from point A to point B, and getting really clear on what that is. And so I think there's like step one is to get clear on where we're going. And step two is to like really get clear on, well, to start taking action that gets us moving from point A to point B, right?
Right. Yeah, the other thought that comes up is what kind of support do you need, whether it's in your business or, in yourself, right? So, I'm thinking like, well, what if you're, you really want to go to Iceland, but you're afraid to fly? So like you got the tickets, you got the new baggage, you got the what you're going to wear, you got the tour guide and all this stuff, and you're scared to get on a plane. How are you going to support yourself and help yourself do that?
Right. So it's like in our businesses, we might have like a great business plan, but as far as like we still have to get over the challenge of facing the fear about asking for money or charging money for our services.
Right.
So
right. Go ahead.
So how have you dealt with that so far, and what are your plans in continuing along those lines?
Right. I think actually that, that's the place that I've put more attention on, and obviously I still haven't gotten it all clear, or I wouldn't be here. I would be busy, reaping big bucks for all the things I know how to do. But, some of it is like knowing myself and knowing what my personal liabilities are, right? I think you had mentioned, that you were surprised about how much mindset was playing a role. And for me, that's been true. And more than mindset even has been like dealing with depression, So some of it, one of the things that I've had to change for myself is like, I wanted to write blog posts for a long time, but you would read people's advice and they'd be like, you have to, blog on a regular basis, and it's got to be some every day or every other day or, this or that. And my brain, my heart, my emotions don't tend to work like that. It's a much more fluid and not always known quantity. And so I just didn't do it. And so some of the support for myself was within myself and from others to get support and encouragement to do it my way, whatever my way was, right? And to just, show up. And actually one of the things that was really helpful was I was listening to a coaching program, and the guy said, better done than none. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. And I take that as sort of, one of my leading mottos, because for a variety of reasons, I'll get caught up and I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing it good enough, or I'm not ready, or, whatever. And so for me, that was one of my biggest liabilities, right? Just not moving forward. And so better done than none. I can live with that,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I am very much a perfectionist, and I want to have like all the details, worked out, and not have any imperfections in it, and that causes me to kind of get stuck in paralysis of analysis type of thing, and it's really hard to move forward doing that. But, when I move forward anyway, even though it's not perfect and it's going for, better done than none type of thing, then, I make progress in getting there. And one of the things that I talked to you, Miche, about was just the idea of, making incremental improvements, progress in doing what we're doing. So I'm going to share the screen one more time.
You're getting really good at it.
So what I came across was that, and you guys can see this, right? So if you start out with $1 and you improve or you increase it by 1%, so just 1% every day, on day one, obviously you start out with $1.01. By the end of the month, you've got $1.35, which isn't much, it's 35 cents. But by the end of the year, you got $37.78. So that's a 3,778% increase from where you were on day zero. And if we can do that in our businesses, if we can, if we can make 1% incremental improvements in what we're doing, then we can go from whatever the equivalent is right now of our business of being a $1 to the equivalent of it being $37.78. That's a pretty dramatic and incredible improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I oftentimes refer back to personally is just the fact that I've been writing for the last several years, doing the 750 words a day project. And in those 3 years, I have written, now when I looked at it a couple of days ago, was I have written 915,000 words in the, in those 3 years, wow. Which, that's probably long. I'm sure it is longer than, I don't know about that. It is probably about the length of the whole Harry Potter series, so.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, and that's just by writing 750 words a day, which honestly takes me about 15 minutes to do. It's not great quality and it's not intended to be, but just by that little incremental effort that we do consistently, and we consistently, improve upon what we have done the day before. So, we might start out by doing, this little webinar thing that I'm doing right now, and it might not be the perfect thing that I want to have, in 5 years. I want it to be very different from this. But, by starting out and putting one foot in front of the other and, making incremental improvements so that, when I do it this time, it's at this level. When I do it next time, it's at this level. And just continually making progress on that, incredible progress can be made cumulatively. And so the thing to do is to get clear on the direction that we're headed, and get clear on how, and trying out ideas. I don't know exactly what it is each step of the way that I'm going to do to improve 1% from what I did yesterday or the last time I did it. Right. But if I continue to build upon that and continue to build that foundation, that structure that I'm building, then it goes from wherever it is right now or wherever it was yesterday to where it can be in the future. And it's just, one little step in front of the other. And another example for that is just the way that I went from when I first started drawing, it was pretty doggone awful. And I was just, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in what I was doing. But by making it a regular practice and, just drawing day after day after day, I went from like where it was like a real struggle to being something that I, have some comfort and some confidence about, Paul, I'm wondering if the same thing happened for you with music. I know when I started, and I've never learned how to play anything other than the radio. But when I started out, or when I even try, it's pretty doggone awful. But I imagine if I consistently worked at it, it would be improved, right? I mean, hopefully. So when you first started playing the drums, I imagine it was a very different experience than what you're doing now.
Oh yeah. But I still loved it. I did 15 minutes a day for like the first couple of years, and then I finally got better and I started to improvise a little bit, and then I started playing an hour every day because I loved it so much. And so yeah. It's amazing when you look back how much you can achieve. Yeah.
Right. And I imagine the same thing with you, Miche, right? I mean, in different areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely got, better or more comfortable or whatever, just from practicing. I'm not so good at so much a day, right? That's like kind of what I was saying before. So I would practice in a big lump and then not practice at all and then do some, but still it worked. And what I'm realizing for myself, listening to you talk about all this, is that it really matters, like what you're using for metrics, right? How, like, how am I going to tell when I'm getting better or my business is stronger or it's going where I'm going, right? Because if I'm just always like in the moment and in the stress of what's not working right in the moment, then no matter what I'm doing, it always looks like I'm not doing it right or it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but so for example, like I had been holding these meetup groups for like a year and a half, and frequently nobody came. And so then I started sending out like email messages to the meetup people and got a little more stuff going on. And then I realized, this one, I don't want to do a drop-in anymore. So I'm creating this class that I'm going to start teaching on Thursday. And I have 7 people signed up for it, which is actually more than I've had at most of the drop-in meetups. So if one of my metrics is participation, I'm doing really well just right now. I mean, really going where I'm trying to go. And if my metric is charging money for it, I'm charging more money for it too.
Right.
So, but if I don't like hold that out as where, the little increments, right? I mean, I don't want to have to wait until next year to see that I've improved. Like I need to see that I'm improving now.
Right.
I'll be able to look back like a month or 2 months, and honor what that is rather than discount it.
Right. So have you got some thoughts as to how you're going to, I don't know, quantify that or get a feel for how you're going to measure your progress in that arena?
Yeah. I don't have a plan, not much of a planner. So one idea is to actually write down a plan, to write down what those things are. And one of them I think is just, for me, if I'm having more people participate, whether it's in a live group with me or on a webinar or on a class, like that's one of the things I want, right? That's the, that's the heart-centered, want to change the world. So it's like, forget about the money for a minute. I want to get my message out. I want to help empower people. So the more people that I'm touching and reaching, that would definitely be a metric of success.
Right.
The fact that I'm still having difficulty paying my rent, then, getting to a point where that's no longer a difficulty, that would be success.
Right. Yeah. So how do you measure success, Paula, in what you're doing?
I don't know yet. For me, it's good to just keep doing stuff every day. And for me, it's really important to enjoy what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I really enjoy what I'm doing, that alone is a success.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And of course, I want to make money with it too, but I heard the other day somewhere that everything takes 3 times as long as you expect it to take. So I'm kind of prepared to just, it's not going to happen this year. And maybe by this time next year, I'll have something. But even if not, as long as I enjoy what I'm doing, I'll keep going. And somewhere along the way, something's going to happen.
Right, right. And I think I think that's important to kind of keep that in mind. I was reading another quote by Viktor Frankl today, and he was talking about that if we focus on success, then the chance that it actually becomes more difficult to get to success. Whereas, where is it? So, actually have it in front of me. Let me pull it up. But what he says is that if you focus on success, and that it's difficult to get there. It's kind of like focusing on happiness. That if you don't really have an idea of what happiness looks like, and you're just focusing it without being open to what brings you happiness, that it's elusive. But when you just live your life and you find happiness in living it, then you tend to be happier, right? Does that make sense? So like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's the path. It's not the destination.
Right. So by following the path, the direction towards, the life that we want to be living. And so, that can be part of our 1% incremental improvement too, is, am I living more of a life that I want to be living today than I was yesterday? Am I doing more of what I want to be doing today than I was yesterday? And by doing that, then we can, continue to move towards that destination. And to be honest, the person I was speaking with this morning was my therapist, and I've been working with her for over 3 years. And when I first came to her, I was in pretty doggone awful state. In fact, enough said, but it was really bad. And by focusing on improving my life incrementally over these last few years, I've gone from where I was kind of just holding on fingertips to like where I can generally and genuinely say that I'm genuinely happy most of the time. And when I was stuck in that like really negative, really depressed state, that was so unfathomable even that, it didn't seem to be even reachable. But by continually progressing towards that and pursuing that experience and kind of that, and being open to that, letting that happen, I've moved from being in that really down spot to being where I'm, happy doing what I'm doing what I love to do, and working with people that I, really enjoy working with, and, feeling like what I'm doing really makes a difference. So, but it's been little tiny improvements day after day, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And I think that success for us is inevitable if we continue to move in the direction that we desire to go. But we have to overcome our fears in order to move in that direction. We need to take that next step that allows us to navigate in that direction. Does that make sense? So what this week is going to be, as far as this challenge is today I already posted a video. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I did a little video on that, that the point of the challenge today is to find and to elaborate upon what your why is. And so it is, what is your why that will carry you through all your fears and hardships? And the second, to go along with that, kind of a corollary, is just that, motivation is easy if you have a big enough why. That when you're, and that's not just like cognitively, but like when you can really feel that motivation, that really desire to do what it is that you want to do, then it's a whole lot easier to accomplish it. And I know depression kind of gets in that way, but when you can like even be depressed and still feel like that drive to get out of that and to move forward,
right?
It helps you to lift out of that kind of abyss that you find yourself in. And so, just like, I should add to this, I've got fear is inevitable, but I think success is inevitable as well, if we continue to move in the direction of what our dreams and desires are. So
makes sense to me.
And I've seen that over and over in my life, as I've kind of navigated my way out of depression. I saw that also professionally. When I first started out at the last company that I worked at, and there was what we call close week. And so it's just like a really big deal when we close out the books for the month. And when we first started doing it, it wasn't a close week. It was like a 10-day long process, and everybody was working like from 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock at night or something. It was just crazy. But we decided that, we're going to change this. And by making these little incremental improvements that we're talking about, we went from, taking a bunch of days to get it done to being done in in less than a week. And so, things had improved dramatically. We can see that in so many areas of our life when we decide, what I'm at this point and I want to be further along. And by making incremental improvements day after day, then we get from where we are to where we want to go. And we go from fear is inevitable to success is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sounds good.
So the challenge today is to figure out and to elaborate in some way what your why is, what your motivation is, what keeps you drawing you forward. And for me, I would love to be able to have it narrowed down to like in 10 words, but for me, it's more of a feeling. It's like I know what it feels like, the direction that I want to be going. And so by focusing on that feeling and being able to head in that direction, and loosely what my feeling is that what I want to create is just helping people live the lives where they are combine their mastery and their passions in order to create the value that they want to create in the market, in the world, and the lives. Because when we do that, when I do that, I'm happier. When I see other people doing that, they're happier, and the world just becomes a better and better place. And I think we're all geniuses in our own right, and if we're empowered to be those geniuses, then the world just becomes infinitely better. So that's what motivates me. That's my why.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'd love to be able to elaborate or put it in this great little sentence, but that hasn't happened for me yet. But I do know the direction in which I'm headed. So
sometimes words are overrated.
Yeah, they are. And that's one of the things I've had to learn. And I mean, writing as much as I do and loving language as much as I do, I've learned that sometimes words really are overrated because they don't capture the feeling that, a lot of times we have.
Mm-hmm.
We can approach it, but there's often times, for me at least, kind of a gap between what I'm able to express verbally and what I'm really feeling. So. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I hope this was helpful, that you guys gained some insight. I know I did.
Yeah, definitely got some ahas here.
Yeah. What is your aha for today?
Well, one of them was just more clarity on what it is that scares me, what that tipping point is when I either want to start charging money or do something like create a class that's going to be online, and that it's about, that's where I decide that sort of they're wrong, they're right, and I'm wrong somehow. So that was helpful to just kind of pinpoint that a little more. And just also really fundamentally, like the need to clarify what my metrics are. And I mean, even using the word metrics is like not something I normally would do.
Right.
But to see, okay, where am I really wanting to go and how am I going to measure that? And again, not in some way that like, the bank would want to necessarily see, but in a way that addresses me and, what I'm trying to do.
Right. Yeah. That was actually an aha for me too, is just, the value of metrics. And what I mean by that, it's actually, my aha was realizing that other people get value out of metrics. I mean, that's what my career has been about, is, messing with metrics and, and doing what we call key KPIs, which are key performance indicators. I mean, that was like my life. But it's like nobody ever wanted to talk accounting because it's accounting. It's like that boring stuff that, but it really does provide value, be able to see, today this is what I did, and, this is giving me some evidence that I'm headed in the direction that I want to be headed, because my metrics are kind of showing that. So.
Right. Well, and with the other, your gifts, your artistic view, your playful view, you can help those of us who think we don't even relate to metrics or need metrics, get on a friendly basis with them.
Right. Yeah, because it can be. I mean, there's lots of ways of doing metrics. I think did I show you like my smiley face chart? It was like, you can. That is just one metric, and it could just totally be a smiley face rather than, anything else.
Right.
The more smiley faces, or the bigger the smile, the better your metrics are. So, but yeah. So how about you, Paul? Have you had any aha moments today?
Yeah, I think my biggest aha is just to basically take some time to find more clarity and get really clear on what I want to do and why. And
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's also kind of
like you said, what do I want to feel? And so, yeah, for me, yeah.
Okay. You're kind of breaking up in the middle of that, but what I heard is, getting clarity and just like really getting clear, not only like what you want to create, but also how you want to feel about what you're creating. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of put the business part a little bit to the side of how am I going to make money and how much, but just kind of focus on what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then that'll come later.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's like a puzzle, right? I mean, you've got these little pieces that, in the financial part of it, because your needs are kind of met by your job that you're working right now. And so, making money off your business isn't like the big need that it is for, some other people, but figuring more out about what it is that you're creating is really a good place to be in. So
Thank you.
So thank you. And my big aha is I made it through this.
Yes, you did.
Yay. High five.
Woo! Yeah. And also just, it starts out with just doing these little steps and, moving forward and taking the next step. Because the thing what keeps success from being inevitable is that we stop doing what we're trying to do. If we never, pick up the pen again or the keyboard or whatever, then we'll never get to where we want to go. But as long as we continue to keep trying and keep moving in the direction we want to head, then, then it works out. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and please share kind of your ahas in the group, and if you're able to elaborate on like what your motivating factor is that keeps you going doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Thank
you, Steve.
Okay. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.